there. Coach eligibility. Who is considered a coach? We spent a long time, it's on the web, we've had it there before, but a coach is someone who provides training, teaching a skill, instruction, tutoring, drilling, exercising, or preparing. Most of those terms apply to everyone in athletics and everyone in fine arts. You teach a skill, you instruct, you tutor. So who is a coach in your school? We've had that situation recently where dad had a D1 kid that was an excellent athlete in a certain sport. Dad showed up every day at practice and worked with that young man and his other position players. Just so happened that Dad was also a skills instructor at a private club and clinic. When those other folks transferred over and they were part of that club and clinic, guess who got popped with follow the coach rule? So if you put them in a jersey, if they're out there working with your kids, they're part of what you do. From a fine art perspective, anybody that works, trains, teaches a skill, instructs, tutors, drills, exercises, or prepares needs to do a professional acknowledgement of rules form. For coaches, you can be paid. Maybe not very much, but you can be paid. You can be unpaid. You can be full-time. You can be part-time. You can be stipend only. You can be a volunteer. You can be a team coach, or you could even be an individual skills coach, a pitching, kicking, serve, return, etc. Anybody you put in a polo on a Friday night on your sidelines, they're a coach. That dad you're trying to reward because he just gave $1.3 million to your football field, and you put him out there in khakis and a polo, he's a coach. So when he cusses out the sideline official on your side and tells him what a stupid job he's doing and gets removed from the game, you owe me some money. So he's a coach. So make sure you understand, 64.2% of the coaches in TAPPS are part-time. They are stipend only. They are volunteer, or they are skill specific. So a lot of them are not making their money sitting at the school. It's not their only source of income like the UIL. All these are important when you consider the follow the coach rule in 104 that we get to and who it is at your school that's actually coaching. So one of the things that's become very popular, anybody have a pole vault coach or a pole vaulter? I was a pole vault coach years ago. I don't think I'd have a job right now because I wasn't that good. Every pole vaulter I know has a specific skills training person that comes out and they go 2-3 times a week and they're going to go indoors and pole vault. When they show up at the TAPPS meet, if they haven't done their professional acknowledgement and scope course, you're out of compliance because they are coaching, training, whatever, and they're showing up to work and tell that kid how to set his bar and do whatever. Make sure you understand who a coach is. By the way, fine arts and athletics, there's 13,142 of you in TAPPS as coaches. We got a lot of coaches. I'm thinking most of them are unpaid. Are there any restrictions? If you have less than 5 years coaching in an interscholastic environment, you're supposed to take the NFHS course. What's the number one most broken rule in TAPPS? This rule right here. So you go hire a 23-year-old person or a 17-year-old person or whoever it is to work with your kids, and they have less than 5 years interscholastic coaching, they're supposed to go take that National Federation course and the principles of coaching. If we don't catch you, congratulations, you have slid. When am I going to catch you? When is this going to become a problem? If that coach gets tossed, creates a problem, or they get you in trouble, and then we come back and look. So please go back and look at this. What if they had the Fundamentals of Coaching 101 at Baylor University? That exempts you from this rule. Being a GA at Baylor University does not exempt you from this rule. Individuals who are under suspension, if you've been around the NCAA at all, they have a show cause order. Basically what that means is you are suspended from actively coaching in the NCAA until such time as you show cause to the NCAA that you are contrite about your offense and you want to come back and you're no longer violating. So if they pull your teaching certificate in the UIL, the TEA pulls your teaching certificate, you're not eligible to coach in TAPPS. So make sure as you interview coaches, or if you are this coach, we need to have a conversation. So make sure if that's who can coach. Anybody else can coach in TAPPS. A lot of retired UIL people that said bad things about you guys in this room are now amongst y'all in this room going, I kind of like this TAPPS gig because I'm retired and I'm getting my TRS and I'm getting some money from TAPPS at the same time. So UIL people become TAPPS fans upon retirement. Section 136, in and out of season. There is a huge difference between baseball, basketball, field hockey, football, soccer, softball, and volleyball. Those are team sports. They have a begin date and they have an end date. The last day you compete, you lose or win, that's your end date. You have an in season, out of season. Lifetime or individual sports, cross country track and field, golf, swim, tennis, and wrestling. There is no beginning date, there is no end date. So, if you're an individual or lifetime sport coach, there are 2 times a year that you cannot coach your kids in TAPPS. This year it's the 4 days of dead week, 28, 29, 30, and 31 of July, and whatever 3 days your school closes during the Christmas break. While we're talking about Christmas, can you play on Christmas Day in TAPPS? Yes, you can. Can you play on Christmas Day in the UIL? No, you can't. There's something really weird about that, but it's just the way it is. So your school has to shut down all activities for 3 days during your winter break. Can you fly out on Christmas Day because your mom, the team mom, got the best price in the world for a soccer team to fly out or basketball team? Yes, you can. But you can't do anything for those other 3 days. The only other day you can't coach them or compete with them is on Sunday. Sundays are forbidden for competition in TAPPS. My friend Larry Frank over here says, but yes, on Sunday we can have practice rounds in golf, and you are correct. So golf is weird because coaches aren't supposed to coach them during their practice round, but some do. Team sports have a beginning and an ending date. August 1st this year is the first day for your fall sports. Football, you get your 3 days of acclimation from the 1st through whatever, and then you go full pads on the 5th. Volleyball is now the weird duck in the UIL that they give you an extra 3 or 4 days to start, so we do too. Congratulations. So it's a very weird schedule in that your first day of volleyball is on a Thursday, and your first day of scrimmage is on a Saturday, and your first game is on a Monday. So what I have concluded is the UIL and TAPPS in our infinite wisdom decide there is no acclimation period needed for volleyball. They come ready to play. Football players take 3 or 4 days to get ready to go. Activities, lifetime, or team activities, there are TAPPS activities and there are non-TAPPS activities. Lacrosse is not a TAPPS activity. Rugby is not a TAPPS activity. Water polo is not a TAPPS activity. Archery is not a TAPPS activity. Bass fishing, though Robert and I were both saying yes. Barbecuing, which we both were ready to raise our hand, they are also not TAPPS activities. We do not regulate what you do on those activities. AAU club and select are not TAPPS activities. Therefore, AAU club and select teams are not eligible as opponents for you. When can you coach? I want to go to the right-hand side for me, whatever it is for you. A camp has a defined beginning and end date. It lasts no longer than a week, and it is for skills instruction. That is a camp. A camp does not occur every Monday night at 7:30 for 6 weeks during the summer or 6 weeks during the spring or fall. That is called individual instruction. So a camp has a defined beginning and ending date. It occurs less than a week. There's a thing called an open gym and an open weight room. These are both defined in Section 1 of the TAPPS bylaws. An open gym, by definition and by intent, you open the gym, you unlock it, you roll the balls out, and you go sit in your office unless somebody comes and tells you you get hurt or you hear the commotion, you go out and tell them to quit messing around. You cannot align them in volleyball and say, you 6 play on this team, you 6 play on that team. You can't go to basketball and say, you need to shoot 100 free throws, you need to do this drill and this drill and this drill. That's not an open gym. That's coach-directed space. If you're doing that, quit. Open the door. Can you only have an open gym for your boys' basketball team? That is not an open gym. That is a coaching opportunity for your kids to get together. An open gym, by definition, means anyone in your school or opportunity should have the same opportunity to go in there. If you were me, I did not like open gym because that meant people that were not on my basketball team wanted to come shoot around just like my basketball players. So make sure open gym is truly open. You cannot coach during an open weight room. You cannot organize activities during an open weight room. You cannot give your senior point guard a list and say, we need to accomplish these things during open gym. Open weight room is different. Why? Because people hurt themselves with weights. In an open weight room, you can take attendance. In an open gym, you cannot. In an open weight room, you can group them and according to their weight classifications or whatever they're lifting. So you can assign who's going to lift with who. In an open weight room, you can tell them what they're going to lift that day. You can write it on the board and say, these are the sets we're going to do, these are the reps we're going to do. So in an open weight room, you can chart all of that. Why? Because I think a football coach made the rule in the UIL and we followed it. Softball coaches might disagree. So an open weight room, the only difference that makes it an open weight room, it is voluntary. I love working kids out. I'm a rehab trainer. I'm a decent enough trainer with the kids. The problem is I can't make them show up. So if you're going to truly do an open weight room and try to buy back time during your year, it has to be open. So if you say, we're having an open weight room at 7 o'clock in the morning, you cannot require the kid to be there. How am I going to know you required the young man or young woman to be there? His mama is going to call Robert Huckabee and say, do y'all require that? And we're going to say, no, we don't. And then mama realizes, you know what? I bet TAPPS got caller ID. And that's where we start backtracking to find out. In season, you have parameters. Do we have, like the UIL, a time restriction per day? Do we have an hour limit on tackling? We have neither one of those. You can hit all you want. We don't agree with it, but you could. There is no time limit. So baseball, softball coaches have the bad rep of life that baseball on Monday night is going to be over when the sun goes down and the lights lose power at about 10 o'clock. And every AP teacher calls me, the principal, and says, hey, what are we going to do about that baseball coach? And I get to say, TAPPS ain't got no rules about it. And they're like, well, are you the principal or is TAPPS the principal? And I said, yes, ma'am, I am the principal. So then I call the baseball coach and say, we need to at least end before it gets dark. In season, we tell you when you can start, we tell you when you can practice, we tell you when you can have your scrimmage, we tell you when your season begins, and we tell you when it ends. In season, we tell you how many games you can play. Volleyball gets 24 in 3 tournaments. Baseball gets 22 in 3 tournaments. Soccer gets 20. I guess because it's cold and we thought, 20 was better than 22. Football gets 10 games in 11 weeks. Have we had this violated? Yes, we have. When you look at it, there's an in-season parameter, and it dictates who's going to do what. Out of season is during the school year. I apologize to every volleyball coach in here. I know you feel picked on. I know you feel disrespected because your season ends the first week or the second week in November, and we tell you you're in off-season all the way till the end of the year. Until your last day of school, you can only touch those kids an hour a day in your athletic period or that hour that your athletic director says before or after school. I also apologize to every softball and baseball coach. Tracy, I apologize to you because you cannot start with them until January 13th. So while everybody else is working their kids out, you have to say, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. You have to wait. Can you coach them in fall ball? No. Can you assign them to a fall ball team? Yes, you can. You can actually enter that team. You can pay for it. They can wear your uniforms. They can wear your catcher's gear. They cannot bring your bats and balls and other things. They can only use your safety equipment. Out of season is 1 hour a day. Basketball coaches, we feel cheated several different ways. One way of which is we don't get you at the beginning and we don't get you at the end. We want to play fall ball and we want to play spring ball. We want to play summer ball. And we just feel cheated the whole way through. And all the individual coaches are out there going, hey, I got to play tennis all year long. Hey, I got to run track all year long. Hey, we got to swim all year long. So in season has a beginning and an ending. Out of season, you can't touch them. Summer, what do we say? The rule changed 2 years ago. Update to some of you, old news to most of you. You get 15 hours per school, 3 times 5, 15 hours per school to touch your kids. So if they are in the volleyball program, the basketball program, the softball program, and track, and they lift weights with you, you get to touch them 15 hours a week for all those activities. So they can go one by one by one. That does not include games. So if you're coaching them in volleyball, basketball, baseball, softball, or whatever, the games don't count. Football coaches, you get the best of all worlds. Football begins August 1st. It ends on week 11. If you're not in the playoffs, it wins when you lose in the playoffs. Then you get to go to your weightlifting or open weight room or whatever you're going to do, and you get to work them through. We actually give you 14 days of spring football. So if you want to pad up and go play and have extra practice after school, you get to have football. So you get at the beginning and the end. And then we invented a thing called 7-on-7. 7-on-7, prior to school's out, unless you're using it as one of your 14 days, you get that 1 hour a day to go play football. We loosened those restrictions so our coaches can coach in 7-on-7 football, and you can coach them prior to the school year being out, and you can get them there and bring them home. The one thing you can't do is use anybody in 7-on-7 or spring football that's not withdrawn from the previous school, enrolled in attending the new school. So that means the quarterback that you think's coming next year from the high school down the street that you really want to be at spring football and 7-on-7 can't start participating with your football cats until your school's out for that year. The UIL schools call that a tryout. So I think we're trying to overcome that myth that they're going to come run 7-on-7 or come to your spring football and come back. In season, out of season, and summer. It's section 136 in the TAPPS manual. Please read that. Dead week applies to everybody but fine arts. So dead week, 28, 29, 30, and 31 applies to everybody but fine arts. So your volleyball coach can't work with them, your cross-country coach can't work with them, your swim coach can't work with them, your cheer and dance can, your band can, your drum line can. They can do whatever they want during those 4 days. That's okay. Cheer and dance is a physical activity much akin to sports. Because of Title IX, TAPPS and the UIL call that fine arts. So it's not that we're degrading the cheer, we're not degrading dance, we understand the activity. Title IX says we're putting it a fine art. Robert, did not go. Did not go. I'll ad lib, that's bad. All right, can you charge for an individual sport? One of the things that we have the most participation in by part-time or coach or individual coaches is tennis. How many of y'all have a tennis coach that is part-time, he works at the club or wherever he is, and then you pay him a stipend, but your stipend only covers whatever you call tennis from January, February to May. And your tennis coach is going to come say, can I give private lessons in the fall and charge them $45 a week? And the answer is, according to Section 131 of the TAPPS bylaws, no. You have a golf coach that doesn't do fall golf, so he's not stipended for fall, he's only stipended for the spring. So if that's the case, can he charge for fall golf instruction lessons? No, he cannot. So if you have questions about that, or if you are that coach and have questions about that, Robert Huckabee, Robert@tapps.biz, Director of Compliance, he will help walk you through that. Does that make sense? So I apologize to tennis, and I'm a tennis guy. I'm a tennis coach. But if I was teaching them in the fall, it was on my dime. If I did 5 hours or 4 hours a week of practice with tennis in the fall, it was on me. Student eligibility, the basics. Let's make it real simple. 19 prior to September 1, we will get at least 25 appeals telling us why the young man or young woman had a horrible time. They're over 19 before September 1, and they should be able to play in TAPPS. And we agree with every appeal that it's a horrible situation. The AEC agrees with every situation that's bad. The board agrees with every situation. The Constitution of TAPPS says we cannot grant this appeal. So if you're 19 before September 1, you're not eligible that year. I will ask you and plead with you, because I've had these crying phone calls, both from the AD, the head of school, and the mom. All three have called me crying. When does a student need to know they're not going to play their senior year? They need to know it the first year they walk on your campus. Get with your admissions director, make dang sure they understand that if this kid's going to be 19 on September 1 of this senior year, he's not going to be eligible to do anything in TAPPS. He can't sing with our honor choir, he can't beat a drum on our drum line, and he can't play football, basketball, softball, or track. I've had 2 or 3 of these kids in my life. We did work it out, but we told them 2 or 3 years early, you're not going to play for us, you're now my manager and my assistant coach. You have 4 years of eligibility from the first day you begin the 9th grade. You have 3 years of eligibility from the day you enter 10th grade, depending on which way that catches you. If you have international students, one of the things that our government says is they should be able to read, write, and understand English, and your school is attesting to that. And then what we do as a general rule on many of them is we roll them back a year. If they've already started the 9th grade, whether it be in America or somewhere else, for the most part, in the majority of cases, they're going to lose their senior year. If those kids stay with you for 4 years, if they've been here from France for 4 years, they're having a good time. I'll tell you, they kept coming back. They're going to want to play their senior year. We need to be upfront. So 19 before September 1, it's an X you can't get out of, and 4 years of eligibility from the first day you begin the 9th grade. I say the story, I say it again. If you've heard it, I apologize ahead of time. If you have homeschool parents, and mom and daddy are so proud that their 7th grader is taking calculus and physics 2 and is ready to take the AP physics exam, which as a physics teacher I could not pass, by the way. And I'm sitting there and they walk in and they tell you they need to be in the 9th or 10th grade. And your admissions director says, hallelujah. But they also want to run track or play tennis or play golf. Most of the time, come about 6 weeks or 9 weeks after you've begged them to not go in the 9th grade, they now want to go back and be in the 8th grade or the 7th grade because they really haven't been in that scholastic setting. This is true for fine arts and athletics as well. If you start the 9th grade and then go backwards at any point, or you stop and repeat it, you're going to lose your senior year or more. So just be very careful. We have one young lady who started college in the 7th grade and now wants to come back and regain eligibility in high school. The board's going to have to wrestle with that one a little bit because I'm not thinking as a 7th grader I would have made it in college. But I think that was a tough decision. Can students reclassify? Vipe from Houston, I love reading their stuff. I love reading their tweets. And it seems to be the new deal across America right now that we're going to reclassify. I'm the number 27 post in this class, but if I go back a year, I'll be the number 2 post, so I'm going to go do that. If you reclassify, you're losing your senior year. So make sure they understand, if you start and you back up, you're going to lose that senior year, and that's for all activities, fine arts or athletics. So the answer to that question is no, you cannot reclassify. Full-time day student. Life changed for me when I started coming to TAPPS when I realized you only had to go to school 4 classes a day. Somebody need to tell my mama this because I went till 4 o'clock every day and took every class they had. So you've got to be attending the member school. Why is that important to say attending the member school? Many of our schools now have an online component. Attending school online is not the same as sitting in the chair every day. So you are sitting in a chair. Our university model schools, that means they're attending your school on the days you have high school. That's what that means. Enrolled in and passing 4 academic classes. I am the guy that had the point guard that failed art and Bible and was ineligible for 9 weeks because she could not figure out. All you had to do was turn in your work and you're going to be passing art and Bible. Academic class has 3 components. It goes towards their GPA. There is an actual grade given, and it's included on their transcript. That sounds real simple to me. It's included in their GPA. They're getting an actual grade, letter or number, and it's included in their transcript. You would be amazed at how many calls we receive over the course of a year asking, how does this work? If I put them in a leadership course, but we don't give a grade, okay, stop right there. You're done. Well, we give a grade, but it doesn't go in their GPA. We're done. So make sure you understand what it is and how we're doing it. So full-time day student. Well, what happens if they've taken every course we have to offer? And believe it or not, that question comes up more than I ever thought. 12 years ago, if you'd have told me, I'd have got a call that said a high school student had taken every course we had to offer. I only got 2 left. He's done by 10 o'clock every day. I just said, no way. We do have schools where that applies. They don't have anything else for them to take. My encouragement at that point is get on to find a Texas Tech course or 2. So if they get to the 4, they come to your school every day and they do that Texas Tech correspondence course, and we got a chance to make it work. What if, the 2 things that are going on here, what if they are going to community college and taking dual credit, but they go to the community college every day? That is not on your campus. That doesn't count as one of your 4. If you know of students, fine art or athletic, that are in this boat, we need to talk. you need to talk to Robert at TAPPS.biz, the Director of Compliance. Full-time day student, class required for graduation, a grade other than pass-fail, class towards GPA. This last one becomes very important as well. It's the one I forget. The student plans to graduate from your school. 12 years ago, the idea that a student would come to your school with no plans to graduate from your school was kind of foreign to me. But we are seeing that pop up where you have a kid that has extremely good ability and they're leaving early. So they have no plans to graduate. They've already made their NCAA requirement, and now they're going to boogie after the fall semester. So if you find yourself in this situation, please let us know ahead of time. What if I plan to graduate early and I plan to go somewhere and try to enroll in college, and then I decide after 4 weeks I don't like it and I want to come back to high school? If you've graduated, that's a big problem because we say you can't be a high school graduate. If you just left early and now you want to come back after 3 weeks, call us. Robert, TAPPS.biz, Director of Compliance, will help you go through that. Transfer process. I'm going to ask Coach Gunlock. Bruce Gunlock in our office is sitting over here in the blue shirt. If you have sent a transfer form in, my friend Bruce Gunlock has seen it. If you failed to send all the documentation in, he sent you an email. If your school was approached and somebody said, I don't agree with this transfer that you're approving, he sent the email to your district. So Coach Gunlock looks at all 1,552 transfers that we had this year. So I don't ask him to remember all the names, but he does have some that he brings and goes, I've seen this school a lot. Or he comes back and he goes, there's a problem and it's a common problem. So transfer students are section 104. If you're going to get a transfer student, make sure you look at it. Coach Gunlock has said two things to me that he wants me to bring up to you today. If you have a transfer student that is going to play baseball or softball, and they're already going to be attending your school in August, please get the transfer form in August. Please do not wait till January to send in the transfer form. So send the transfer form in as soon as you can. If you have a school district that will not sign the transfer form, then you need to send a letter in with the transfer form that says, I have gone to XYZ, I've gone to the ISD, I've talked to the AD, I've talked to whoever, and they will not sign this form. Then Bruce can send it to your district executive committee and they can look at it. So tell him why it's not signed if it's not signed, and get him in as early as possible. Some of you in this room, I won't name names because I know you too well, are going to call on August the 27th and say, I need to get this kid approved for tomorrow night. And Bruce is going to say, well, you realize it's a 2-day process and it's 2 school days, so it's not going to be looked at till next Tuesday because that's a holiday, so that means next Wednesday, so they ain't playing this week. Now, you have 2 choices. You play an ineligible player, and if you win the game, you forfeit the game. Or, there's even worse, you know they're ineligible because Coach Gunlock has told you they're ineligible, and according to the rules our board and AEC just reviewed and passed, you're in trouble. So please, transfer forms. If you're a football coach, if you know a football coach, if you've passed a football coach in the hallway, if there's a new kid that you don't know from last year in the hallway and he's playing football, somebody go ask the AD secretary, are we okay? The process is pretty well defined. In rank 1, you were using TAPPS last year, you're using rank 1 this year. So they're going to fill out the STF, the student transfer form. You're going to print that off. Then they're going to get a PAPF from you. You're not going to download it off the website. You're going to have to print it out of rank 1 and hand it to them, or they can print it off at the house through rank 1. They're going to get it signed, and we're going to upload it and go from there. So the process isn't going to change much. 2 days, 2 working days later, if nobody in the district objects, I will say the one thing that's going to be a positive, and some of you in this room have asked for it, when we send out the notification you got 2 days, you'll have access to look through the PAPF. So you get to see the PAPF, which is did the other school sign off. You will not see the STF. You're not going to see if they got financial aid. You're not going to see those things. But you will have access to the PAPF. So we think that's going to be a positive. Rank 1 is not an email, it's a push notification. So we can actually push to just one district or just one region. So we feel like we're going to be better off. Deadlines. If you've looked at a calendar, if you have the calendar out there, I forget, the second Tuesday in September is going to be the fall transfer deadline. The first Tuesday in November is going to be the winter transfer deadline, and the last Tuesday in January is going to be the spring transfer deadline. That means for a student to be eligible to play sports that period, they have to be enrolled, attending, paid, and everything that a new student would have to do at your school, in a really big word. They have to be withdrawn from the other school. You would be surprised at the day of the deadline, people are saying, well, he's not really withdrawn from the other school yet. He was waiting to see if he got in here. Okay, if you haven't gone and told the other school you're leaving, you're not withdrawn yet. So they have to be withdrawn. I'm going to beg and plead for Coach Gunlock and Robert Huckabee, Robert at TAPPS.biz, Director of Compliance. Please do not call them the day after the transfer deadline and say, we just didn't know. You're passing this course, you're signing a form that says you know. You need to go tell your admissions people a week before this deadline, if we got anybody that's looking, let's get the paperwork in and get it started. You do not have to have your paperwork in by the deadline. Misconception. The student can't be eligible until after we approve it, but the paperwork does not have to be done. They have to be withdrawn from the old school, attending the new school, and all the enrollment and testing has to be taken care of. Somewhere along the way, your school is going to get paid as well. If it's a long time afterwards, we may have a problem. Excuse me. Senior transfers. If you've got a calendar, circle August 15. Senior transfers must be enrolled, attending if you're open, and withdrawn from the previous school by August 15 to be eligible for the coming year. So if you're a volleyball player, that kind of makes sense. If you're a football player, a cross-country runner, one of those things, it makes sense. This applies to baseball, softball, and everything else. So you need to go back to your head of school, you need to go back to your admissions director and say, if we've got seniors that are looking to transfer to us this year, we need to be ahead of this August 15th date. There is a provision that the board has looked at and approved that if your school starts later than August 15th, we'll look at first day of school to make sure they're there on that first day. Senior transfers. We haven't had a lot, but understand up front, if a baseball player, softball player, whatever comes to you on January 15th and says they want in, they have made the spring transfer deadline, but they missed by a couple, 3, 5, 6 months the senior transfer deadline. That doesn't mean they can't come to your school. It doesn't mean they can't work out with you. It doesn't mean they can't travel with you and sit in your dugout and give great instruction and great support. It means they can't put on the uniform and play. I'm going to skip follow the coach and go to ineligible at the previous school. We have had a situation, has the UIL. In the day I grew up in Fort Worth ISD, if they came and told you you were expelled, they meant you were expelled. You left and you walked out and you took all your stuff with you. Now, many of our private schools and our public schools, to get away from those legal ramifications, have said, if you will voluntarily separate from our establishment, we will not tell anybody what's going on in the future, and you can go on scot-free. If that's how it happens, I can't stop it. But if you got expelled or told you can't play football or you can't play basketball because you broke team rules or you broke school rules, or in our case you had alcohol at the prom, but we were all 18. It was 1978, and I don't think any of us got in trouble. But ineligible at the previous school, you cannot regain your eligibility in TAPPS until you serve that punishment. So if they send you, if ISD next to you sends or sentences, that's a good word, sentence, a young man or a young woman to 30 days in an alternative school, if they transfer and meet all these deadlines, they can't be eligible for you at least until they've paid that 30 days price. So they don't regain immediate eligibility by coming to you. Believe it or not, we had several schools over the past years that would do that immediately. Somebody gets kicked out here, they're here, we sign the paperwork, they're playing for you on Tuesday night. We don't do that anymore. So if they're ineligible at the previous school, they're going to be ineligible with you. What if they get kicked off the football team for cursing at the coach? Coach didn't like it. I've been cussed at long enough. You're gone. And their athletic rules say that's what's going to happen. They've signed their athletic code of conduct, and they kick them out. They come to you. They say, I'd like to come to your school. Somebody in your department says, how come you ain't playing football over yonder? Because I think you're playing D1 next year. Well, I cussed the coach out. And you flip through your athletic handbook real quick and you say, you know what? You cuss a coach out here, you only have to sit 2 games. Well, as long as it's in your handbook, you cuss the coach out, you only sit 2 games. They got to sit the 2 games at your school before they're eligible to play on. Now, I hope y'all don't have that, but we do have several things where We have schools right now that have some have a very hard rule, and I hate to say it, but they have a hard rule on drugs and alcohol. If you do it, you get caught outside or whatever, you're gone from our school. We have other schools that say we're going to go to mediation, or you've got to go to counseling for so long, or whatever it is. Both are good. They don't necessarily work and jive together like they used to. So if you're one of the more lenient schools, just remember your rules still have to apply. So if they got kicked out for drinking at homecoming, and they come to you and your rule says you got to sit 2 games or do, the one that I liked the best was they had to do 30 hours of community service and get 30 hours of counseling. And the guy wanted them to play next week, so I said, that's 60 hours in a week. How did you accomplish this task? Because most counselors I know are only going to see you for like an hour, hour and a half at a time. Well, we did it online. Robert at TAPPS.biz, Director of Compliance, he'll walk you through that. Follow the coach. The most ambiguous and the number one rule you're going to get tripped up on. So I'm going to tell you this. If you're coaching AAU, if you're coaching select, if you're giving individual training, if you're a quarterback's coach, if you're a kicking coach, if you're whatever coach you are, if you're doing it outside, you're getting money for it, or you're at another school doing it, if you've touched a kid in the last 12 months and they transfer to the school you are presently employed by, that kid is going to be ineligible for a year. So if it's a senior and they transfer to you, they're ineligible for a year. We're all smart people, but I'll do the math. That means he ain't going to play for you or she's not going to play for you this year. If you coach that kid in the last 12 months and they come to the new school, they make application in April, and they start attending in April, and they go through the whole rest of the spring, and you get hired in July, it's kind of hard to follow somebody if I was already there before you got there. However, the trip is the coach at the old school says on Twitter, which, by the way, everybody does, or they say on Facebook, which, by the way, everybody does, or they make the announcement on your school newspaper, Coach Bunselmeyer is leaving our establishment, and the new school says, hey, we've hired Coach Bunselmeyer in January to coach next year. That could be a violation of Follow the Coach, Section 104. Robert at TAPPS.biz, Director of Compliance. Follow the Coach 104. I'm begging you. I'm pleading with you. Listen to me strongly right now. If you have a question, please call us. Brian at TAPPS.biz, Steve at TAPPS.biz, Robert at TAPPS.biz, 254-947-9268, 254-947-9268. Info, I-N-F-O, at TAPPS.biz. I got a question. I want to walk through it. Let us help you avoid the pitfalls. It is much better for you to call us ahead of time and let's walk through it than for us to find out later when we can't help you. We are not here to punish you. We're here to help you. But I was a very good assistant principal. And when discipline came my way, Coach Gunlock, Bruce at TAPPS.biz, is the one that got to help me with that. So follow the coach. Make sure you know it. Dude, what am I doing wrong? Help me. Raise your hand if you have a student that is not a citizen of the United States in your school. Come on now, most of you have at least one that's not a citizen of the United States. There is a process called 102 that you have to follow at least once during their high school career to get them approved to play. So, is a green card a citizen of the United States? The answer is no. I'm here on Daddy's visa because he got hired in Houston because he's an oil exploration engineer from France. You are not a citizen of the United States. So if you are not a citizen of the United States, you are either here as a foreign exchange student or you are here as a foreign resident student or you are traveling on mommy or daddy's visa. If you are not a citizen of the United States, one of the first questions Rank 1 is going to ask you on the new system for academics, for art, for drumline, for football, for basketball, when you put the kid in is, are you a citizen of the United States? If that answer is no, you're going to get a little pop-up. and it's going to say click here to go to section 102 and fill out this form. So it has to be approved prior to. If you're a foreign resident student or a foreign exchange student, foreign exchange get 1 year. That's coming through the old CIST program. I got to go to state tennis in 1994 with Sergio in Texline America, and I made everybody north of Amarillo and Lubbock mad because I had the foreign exchange student from Spain who had his own tennis racket stringing machine, and his daddy sending a coach every other week to Texline. If you don't know where Texline is, look it up on the map. There ain't no airports near Texline America. I got to go because he was an international exchange student. He was there for 1 year. The one question I asked that young man was, you had your choice of going to any school in America when you went to CSIET. Any school in America. You were from a metropolitan location in Spain. Your daddy is worth $1 billion. Texline has a stated population of 425. It's in the middle of it's at the Panhandle. It's in New Mexico, and we call it Texas. We counted cows for students. The bell rang the first semester I was there, and all the kids got up and left at 10 o'clock in the morning. I had no clue. It was corn cutting time. This was in the 90s. This was not 1936. And he goes, Daddy wanted me to learn humility. Oh, man, you were in the right place. And for a young man from Spain, he had no idea what Mexican food was. So I really felt sorry for him because that's all the little lady in the cafeteria cooked. So he could have bologna or he could have Mexican food. I say that to say he got 1 year in the United States. If I'm a foreign exchange student and I am at ABC Christian School, I cannot come back as a foreign exchange student and be eligible in TAPPS again. You get 1 year's eligibility as an exchange student regardless of what school you're at. Foreign resident, your school is going to issue an I-20 or similar. If you're living with mom and dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, the people that I would want raising my daughter, you would want raising you if it was your mom and dad, you would be eligible immediately. You still got to fill out a form. What if I'm living with anybody but grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, or aunt, uncle? I'm living with auntie down the street, or I'm living with my dad's best friend. You're going to be ineligible for the first year you're in the United States. Don't mess this up. If it pops up, says not a citizen, fill out the form. Boarding schools, and we have several of them represented here. If you're a boarding school, you don't have to fill out the form. On rank 1, you'll click boarding school. Those students are eligible immediately. The difference with the boarding school is you're promising and saying amen to all these Section 102 things that they are all in compliance. There is a process. They're going to click on rank 1. I'm not a student of the United States. A form is going to come up. They're going to fill it out. They're going to send it in with $25. Bruce at TAPPS.biz is going to review it. If all the forms aren't there, he's going to write you a letter from Bruce at TAPPS.biz and tell you to get your forms in before I look at it. How thick is your stack of international students that did not get completed this year? And he's not lying. So some of you, maybe not in this room, but those that coach in TAPPS might have played an ineligible player if you didn't get it approved. I never thought of this when I was a principal. Students not living with parent. Students who don't live with their parents are, by rule, ineligible for a year of varsity play, unless they live with brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa. Why is this important? Well, the one thing that was really important was the people that want to reclassify also want to go live with their AAU coach. We call that Bowie High School UIL basketball. Or we're overage and we lie and we go live with our basketball coach. That's called Odessa Permian, and we're 24 years old and now we're in the pen. You cannot live without your mom and with somebody other than your mom and dad or your family and be eligible immediately if you're there. The exceptions are, I've been with my guardian for more than 3 years, my mom and dad are deceased and the court has placed me somewhere, or I'm placed by the state. So if you're a foster parent and you get a young man or young woman, they'd be eligible. If you do nothing else after you get through with this deal and you're very tired at night and you're ready to go to sleep, Download and read Section 87 of the TAPPS bylaws. It will put you to sleep in a heartbeat. So, tampering. Mr. Burleson would say, do not stand at the finish line of the 100-meter dash and give the first two people that finish your business card and invite them to come to your school. I say this humbly. I had all the 7s and 8s he would have never wanted my kid. I'm honest. But Mr. Burleson was correct. That's tampering. If you do nothing else as far as creating this opportunity for yourself for tampering, go to your admissions director as a coach, as an AD. Go to your admissions director and say, may we please laminate some of your cards? I need your business card that has your email and your phone number, and I need to laminate them. As a coach or AD, walk to every coach you have and say, hi, you do not know Mrs. Jones. Here's the contact information in case somebody contacts you about coming to our school. So please make sure, follow that. Improper solicitation. Can you put a billboard up on the sign on the road that says, come to our school? Yes, you can, because everybody that drives down I-35 in North Fort Worth, they're going to see that sign. Can you go put up a sign at the end-of-year celebration for the 16U volleyball team at the Holiday Inn that only one team that plays volleyball is attending? That might be considered improper solicitation. We actually had somebody do that, so I was a little concerned. Somebody's going way too deep into, I got to get these kids. Improper solicitation. If they come to your camp and you send them an email that says, thank you for attending my basketball camp, would you please consider coming to our school? There's nothing wrong. They've reached out to you. They attended a camp. Having your full admission staff on the table at the junior high or the high school track meet, and every mom and dad that walks in that pays you $5 to enter gets an application, an opportunity, and a speech, that might be considered improper solicitation because by definition, they're probably there at the track meet to watch an athlete. I will say I have not had the case of a trumpet player being improperly induced or solicited yet. The other side of this, as I go back, is inducement. If I apologize, I don't have it up here. Look at Section 87. It's in Section 102. The promise or payment of tuition, the promise or payment of money, the promise or payment of a job, transportation to and from your school. So if you have a coach, I'll use the DFW area. So if you have a coach that lives in Irving, Texas, and you're attending Weatherford Christian School, and you live in Irving, Texas, there's probably a pretty good coincidence that on most mornings the coach is picking you up in Irving and driving across the city of Fort Worth to get to Weatherford. If that's not the case, I guarantee you your district opponents believe that to be the case. That's a 35-mile drive to downtown Fort Worth at 7:30 in the morning. It's not going to happen. We also have the case of a young man that was living in Weatherford and attending a school off of 635 in East Dallas. Again, we've kind of figured he's probably not going to be there most days. So make sure inducement is anything of value. Alabama High School Association. Anybody hear about the young lady? D1 recruit, #1 player in the state. If y'all didn't hear about it, you need to go Google it. She goes to the USA, plays for the 16 or 18 under team. They gave her some gear, and they gave her some things that totaled more than a certain amount of money. By rule, kind of like TAPPS rule, that means you're ineligible for the next year. The Alabama High School Association director said, by rule, honey, you're ineligible. She appealed. Their board said, you're ineligible. Jay Billis got on TV, ranted and raved. The lawsuits were filed. The Alabama High School board said, maybe you're eligible if you pay the money back. You sit a couple of games. Don't put us in a situation to do that. Watch inducement. Inducement can be anything they get. That's an amateur rule, but make sure what they get. If every kid on your team is going to pay to fly to Las Vegas to play in a tournament, what happens when you give the two little darlings free ride out there and free hotel room, but you charge everybody else? To you, that may be considered being a good steward of your kids and your money. To your opponents, it might be considered inducement because those two athletes got something nobody else did. Health and safety. There's two initiatives. How many of y'all are football coaches? Do me a favor and raise your hand real quick. You're going to get an email in the next few weeks called the Medical Timeout. So we're partnering with Dr. James Kyle. If you're a football coach and you have an athletic trainer prior to the games, we want the trainer from both schools, a coach from both schools. If you have an ambulance on site, that person to show up. We're going to do the medical timeout prior to the game. I don't care if it's a phone call ahead of time. I don't care if it's an on-site meeting. The situation is this. Gridiron Heroes has been around for a while, and it's a tragic accident when somebody is no longer able to walk and talk and do the things they like to do, and we've also had some deaths. So the medical timeout is the thing you don't ever want to discuss. You don't want to jinx yourself. You don't want to think about what happens if young Johnny doesn't get back up off the turf. But you need to plan ahead of time. So the medical timeout, we're sending you information on it. We're going to ask that you follow it through. The biggest thing is, if you have a tragic occurrence, let's please have a plan for how we're going to take care of that. So Dr. Kyle is there. You have general first aid, you have cardiac awareness, you have concussion awareness, you have heat and dehydration, and you have appearance and performance-enhancing drugs. You are required to receive training annually in each of those things. If your school does not provide it, if you don't go to Texas high school coaches or Texas girls coaches and get your concussion, you can go to the National Federation of High Schools, NFHS.learn, and watch that course. Your concussion course for TGCA and THS and Texas High School Coaches Association is good for 2 years. Again, you're required to have that training. I laugh about bloodborne pathogens. I hated that movie. I hated watching it. I will also say to you, it applies to all of your high school coaches. So please make sure that everybody knows what to do in the event of a major injury. Your health and safety plan needs to be more than dial 911. Dial 911 is not an emergency action plan. It's not health and safety. So make sure you're there. You are going to get an account to rank 1. And as administrators and coaches, your school will have an account to rank 1 health. I know some of you guys in Houston are using Magnus or Mangus or whatever it is. You're still going to be reported to report your injuries. You're required to report those injuries to TAPPS through rank 1 health. So make sure and help us. This year, we probably had about 50% of the injuries reported. We still had 72 or 73 schools that went through the whole year with no injury. The majority of those had 6-man or 11-man football. I'm pretty sure we had some injuries along the way. Of course, we did have the choir kid that fell off the riser and got a concussion, and that got reported. So I raised my hand to that choir teacher. She got in there and reported it. But that is one of the things that we're doing. So if you've got questions about why or how to report, let us know. What's next? Because I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Technology is not my friend. Robert's got it, though. A primary concern as we go into this year, health and safety. I just read those things to you, so there you go. Contest officials, section 134. You have TASO for all sports. TASO covers. To be an eligible official for TAPPS, the TASO official must be assigned by the chapter. So I show up at your volleyball, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, wrestling, swim, or whatever, and I have my TASO card. I am not eligible to officiate your game if I didn't come through a TASO chapter assigner. Yeah, but I came through Mark down the road. Mark's my buddy, and we're cutting $5 off the price, so you'll use this. That is not a TASO certified. You want them and must have them through there. THS BOA. By definition, until they change their bylaws, that is Texas High School Basketball Officials Association. It's not a test, but I'll ask you, what sport do you think they're eligible to provide services for? And it's basketball. So Alliance Baseball in Fort Worth went over to become part of THS BOA. They had to become a TAPPS approved chapter in order to be able to call games for TAPPS. So you can be TASO, you can be THS BOA for basketball, or TAPPS approved. If you're not going to be one of the first two, you have to fill out an application with TAPPS. They have to provide a certificate of insurance. And to protect you and us, they got to name us as additional name insured. So when they get sued and I get sued, it's their insurance that gets hit before mine. But they're also agreeing to mediation. They're also agreeing to training. Contest officials, section 134. TASO is baseball, basketball, football, soccer, softball, swim, and wrestling if you can get them. THS BOA is basketball only. TAPPS approved for every sport. Part of being TAPPS approved is they must reapply every 2 years. This is that year. If you're not using THS BOA, if you're not using TASO, if it's a TAPPS approved chapter, you know who they are. If we don't contact them, if you need to call that official assigner and say, if TAPPS doesn't contact you in the next 2 weeks, please email steve@tapps.biz or bruce@tapps.biz, and let's get on with this deal. So recertification, we need to make sure we're there. I have talked about ejections and removal from a contest. We changed this word from ejection to removal from a contest because we had some really sly coaches in TAPPS. I give us credit. We were above the bar as far as being sly and tricky. So what we did was we said, the official ran by and said, number 62 cannot continue in the game. And so we said, okay. Well, he was removed from the contest because he could no longer continue. But I didn't have to report it as an ejection because he didn't actually eject him. He didn't use that word. If you have a young man or woman, or if you're a coach or a fan, and the official tells you you can't hang around anymore, you were removed from a contest and you were officially ejected. So you're going to sit some games and you're going to have some penalty to pay. One thing that happens as you get farther in the playoffs, go back and read section 138, removal from a contest, you're going to find that fee gets pretty steep the higher up you go. Please don't get tossed. And I never thought in the world, when I saw that the UIL had those two young men that hit the back judge and intentionally hit him in football, I thought there's not a chance in the world this would ever happen at TAPPS. And it happened the next dadgum week. So here's the deal. If you threaten, if your players threaten, if a fan threatens, or if they make physical contact with, threaten physical harm, come in contact with. We had a mom and a dad follow an official to the locker room, to the car, and drove out the gate, following down the highway. He called 911. Those people are doing some serious opportunity with the police at this point. They got arrested for stalking or whatever it was. Don't get removed from a contest. We had over 225 students and coaches ejected, removed from a contest this year. If you were a baseball, softball coach, I want you to think real hard with me. What is the number one thing you cannot do? Argue balls and strikes. Quit doing it. Quit doing it. Do they owe you a warning before they toss you? No. They just say goodbye, I'm tired of you. Don't argue balls and strikes. In basketball, don't use certain words at them. Usually the words that grandma did not want to hear in the church house. If you use those, you will get tossed. Can you come out on the field in any activity or on the floor in any activity? No. We do it all the time. Football coaches, there's a line in front of you. Quit going past the numbers that are inside the line. They don't like it. And if you go all the way out to the white hat, yelling at him and calling him by his first name and saying things about his children and other things, he has the right to toss you. Don't do it. We actually had a coach do that this year. Went out past the numbers, which is bad enough, and then went at the white hat, yelling and screaming at him. I'm pretty sure his grandma was not going to be excited, but then again, knowing the coach as I do, his grandma might have taught him how to do it. But just remember, it's not the way you want to get. What happens if you get tossed twice from a game? You're going to come see Robert and Steve at TAPPS.biz. What happens if you get 3 in a sport? Your athletic director and the coaching staff are going to come visit Robert and Steve at TAPPS.biz. What if you get 5 ejections overall as a school? There's going to be a whole lot of your people, head coaches, coming up to visit Robert and Steve at TAPPS.biz. Don't get ejected. Can you appeal an ejection? No. Official's word is final. The only situations that can change that are, I'm dyslexic. I said I ejected number 13, it was really number 31. Just tell us that it was the wrong number. We'll figure that out. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. Or targeting. For those of you who are in football, I'm understanding there's going to be kind of a targeting personal foul thing this year, and then there's going to be a targeting. If you launch and they call it targeting, you can send the film in and we will send it to TASO to review. Targeting is the only thing you can review. The only reason we allow you to review targeting, TASO doesn't know what targeting is. So we kind of want to have them explain that to us. So don't get removed. It counts in a scrimmage. People think, well, it wasn't a game, it was a scrimmage. If you get tossed in a scrimmage, it's going to count. What if we have a bench clearing brawl in a scrimmage? It counts. Don't do it. It's happened twice in the last 2 years. Don't do it. Non-district games. Steve, I wish he was here to say it, you were TAPPS all the time, everywhere. Any game, your high school students, any contest, your high school students, whether it be art, academics, music, or athletics, you are TAPPS all the time. So non-district games, tournament, district games, and postseason games, they are yours. You get tossed. Any of the rules that we talk about apply in all of those games at varsity and sub-varsity level. Some of y'all do not report the sub-varsity in a timely manner, which means you get a letter from Robert at tapps.biz which says, please report. Both schools, if you're both TAPPS schools, need to report the ejection. That ejection report will be available on your coach's toolkit on rank 1. The rule applies during the game, at halftime. How long is the official in charge? Think about it. I'm a basketball guy. What do they do every time they walk in the gym, even in girls' games? They blow the whistle. That means they're in charge. When do they leave a game? When does their jurisdiction leave? When they leave the playing premises. So you or a parent or a kid going after the official before they walk off the court can and will get them ejected, as it did this year. Pre-game. I've never understood why dunking in pre-game was a technical foul, except for the fact that most people that dunk in a pre-game have no desire to do it in a game when real people are standing there playing defense, so it kind of offends me. If you're going to do it in pre-game, do it in post-game and do it in the real game. Report it through TAPPS on rank 1. There's a suspension, there's a fine, the cumulative ejections, there is a process, there's no appeal. This year is a change. We had so many fans ejected last year that we have now enacted a rule. Fans are your responsibility. If you have a fan ejected or asked to leave, you need to report that as well. If you have many fans ejected, get all their names or take a group picture and send it to us. If you have your fans ejected, we're going to require that you give them a warning. If you do this again, you will not be invited back. Then when they do it again, you can say, yep, TAPPS told you not to. I got to tell you not. And now I got to pay a fine, so you pay me the money so I can pay TAPPS. Fans are your responsibility. I've asked this several years in a row. We still do not have 100% compliance. In any sport, please do not put your student section behind the opponent's dugout or bench. This never ends well. If you have seen Duke do it on television, don't do it in TAPPS. It ain't fun, it ain't cute, and you're making somebody mad. And the last thing I'll tell you is, as a reminder, fans coming on the floor to become involved in an altercation, happened twice this year, your school is going to come visit with us about your game administrator and your crowd control. Fan and bench behavior, they're yours. It lies with you. I'm a very emotional guy. Most of y'all probably can't tell that. If I'm raising my arms and I break my clipboard over my knee because of an official's call, what do you think the 16-year-old kids behind me are going to think? That's pretty cool. Coach Putzelmeyer just broke a clipboard. We can probably go a lot farther than that before he gets mad at us. Your coaches and you as a coach, it's your responsibility. Oversight of the bench and players rests with you. If there's an altercation on the floor or on the field and they leave the sideline, by rules, NCAA football and every national federation rule we have, if you leave the bench, you are considered, whether the official says so or not, ejected. So if you're a six-man football school, you have 6 players on the field, one of them gets involved and he's going to be removed from the contest, but the other 4 that you had standing on the sideline run out there to help, you ain't playing next week because you can't start a game with 5. If they leave, they're gone. Game administrator. Every home game you have at the high school level, we require a game administrator from your school to handle things. Every playoff game, and I would advise every district, you have a game administrator from both schools. Why is that important? Well, sometimes it's easier for you to go tell your fans to sit down or be quiet or go tell your student section than it is me. I had a long talk with a head administrator and a coach earlier this week that said, you know what, we're just going to hire a police officer and have security there every time. And I'm not ever going to go talk to even my own parents anymore. I'm just going to tell the police officer, it's that one right there, and we're going to go take care of it. And I thought, that's pretty tough. And then I realized that's really the only safe way to do it anymore. Because that way it's not really you doing it, it's the police officer, and you don't have to bring them back. Game administrators can be an administrator, teacher, coach. What you can't do, and I will fess up as the Liberty Christian coach of old, I cannot be the girls' head coach and be the game administrator for the boys' game, or the boys' coach and be the administrator for the girls' game, because I probably ain't going to be there for part of that game. I'm probably, if I'm the girls' coach, going to be still talking to my girls while the boys are warming up and playing, which, by the way, is when most of the bad things start. So make sure you get it taken care of ahead of time. So, very important. Important forms are going to be under your toolkit, rank 1 toolkit. Eligibility roster, injury reporting, ejections, and out of state. And you have hit pretty much the end of this opportunity. Rank 1 sports. If you've got questions, talk to them while you're here. If you've got more questions, let them know, let us know. I think it's going to be a big value. Injuries, we're going to send you an email back to health and safety. We're going to send you an email with the list of injuries that must be reported in rank 1 health. Please help us with that as we go forward. If you're going home today, then go home today. Safe travels. If you're staying tomorrow, I highly encourage you to hear Dr. Dale's talk. It's going to be good. And for those of you that have any interest in the health and safety side, Dr. James Andrews, he is the guy, the orthopedic surgeon to the stars, is going to be here to talk about overuse in high school sports. Out-of-state games. Out-of-state games, go to Bruce Gunlock at bruce@tapps.biz. If you're playing an out-of-state opponent, when you put your schedule in, it's going to say what state. If you put Florida, you're going to have to fill out a form, and remember, it is a request, not a statement. If you're playing an out-of-state team, one-off, or you're inviting them to a tournament, if you're playing an out-of-state tournament, must be approved before you go. What's the penalty if you don't? You lose games or tournaments next year. Most of you have already got a pretty good idea where you're going to go. If you're going to go to a KSA event in Florida, if you're going to go out to Nevada and play something, you know that already, get those forms in. Out-of-state opponents, the form will be in your toolkit on rank 1. Steve's here, Robert's here, I'm here, Coach Gunlock's here. If you got questions, come see us. We're here all week. We're in Fort Worth next week for sand volleyball, and we're here next week after that for 7-on-7 football. We'll be here a lot. If you need us, call us. Thank you, guys. Make sure you sign in or you don't get credit. That was horrible.
No, we're good. No, it's all good. Do we have anything in here, Stevie, or are they converting? I have a facility panel here. Okay, we got a panel in